In the last lecture, we looked at the pyramids of Giza. And we noted that the pyramids are not standalone structures, but they are just the largest parts of a much larger funerary complex that included dozens of other structures. There were temples at the base of the pyramids themselves, and they were connected by long causeways to valley temples at the Nile floodplain. These valley temples were used to perpetuate the cult of the deceased king and were active places of daily worship for sometimes hundreds of years after the king's death. Images of the king would have been placed in these temples to be this focus of worship. And we find lots of images in these contexts, including the sculpture that I'm showing you right now, Khafre enthroned with the symbol of Horus the falcon encircling his neck. This sculpture was carved around 2500 BCE of a particular kind of diorite that was imported from Nubia. This type of diorite shines blue when hit with the sunlight. And so it would have really glowed, and because of this particular kind of stone and the color of it, it would have been left unpainted. Many sculptures would have been painted with colorful paint, but we don't have any evidence of paint on this particular sculpture. Diorite is an extremely hard stone, and so it projects that idea of permanence that is often seen in the renderings of royal portraiture. Khafre, who is the son of the three generations that were entombed in the pyramids, is shown here enthroned. And he's not just sitting in a throne, but the beautiful veins of marble, of veining of the diorite, show us that he is carved from the same block as the throne. So in a way, he's fused with the seat of power that he occupies. He's seated in a throne that is made of two stylized lions, and we see the paws of the lions here. And in the next slide, I think you'll get a better view. Here is a lion head, and here are the paws. And you can get a better view in this slide of the falcon that is encircling his head from the back. Underneath the lions, we see the images of lotus and papyrus plants, symbols of the Nile. His body is depicted as strong and static. He's wearing a ceremonial beard and the headdress of the pharaoh. He projects serenity and stability. The form expresses the purpose to last for eternity. His arms are in a particular pose in which one fist is clenched and the other one is open. In this sculpture, we see several of the conventions for depicting a pharaoh. He is strong, muscular, but very still. His arms and limbs are compact, close to the body of the stone, the block of stone. He's seated in a throne, having bare feet. He has a ceremonial beard and the headdress of a pharaoh. In addition, here, of course, the Horus, as symbolized by the falcon, identifies the king as the living Horus. Menkaure is depicted standing and in the company of the queen, or who has been identified sometimes as the queen and sometimes as the goddess Hathor. This once stood in the valley temple of Menkaure's pyramid complex at Giza. Like with the sculpture of Khafre, we see these two figures wedded to the stone block. In fact, if you'll notice that there's no space in between them, and they were probably placed in niches like this, meaning that they were only meant to be seen from the front. In this way, they really could be considered extremely high relief rather than freestanding statues. We see in Menkare's pose, which we see over and over again in depictions of royals, he's rigidly frontal with his arms hanging straight down, close to his body. He's depicted as muscular and strong, but very still. He's clenching his hands into fists, and this gives his muscles a flex that we can see in his anatomy. The queen stands in a similar position. Her arm is encircling his waist in a gesture that seems protective and supportive. Menkare takes a step forward, although his position is still very symmetrical and frontal. The queen also takes a small step forward, but not with the distance or stride as Menkare. Despite this embrace of support or protection, we see no other emotion expressed, but rather this soft, serene, static facial expression. The artist here was not intending to show living figures, but rather timeless figures and statues that would serve as the eternal home for the Ka.